Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mental Health, Mysticism, and Metaphysics Discussion with Mike Ray and Dr. Gil Tivon. As always, I am your host with Metaphysical Sciences TV, Mike Ray. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for everyone who is just joining us for the first time, whether you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Riverside, or our new app, which will be up and running within the next few months, or whether you're catching us later on or listening to or watching the replay from this podclass. Thank you for joining us. Just a quick reminder of the outline of the podclass. First, we will be having the lecture portion of the podclass, and then we'll be opening things up to discussion and take questions during the interactive portion of the class, which will be the second half of the episode. So if you could please be so kind as to keep yourselves muted until the interactive portion. If you are in the virtual classroom, we greatly appreciate it, and we thank you in advance. If you do have any questions or comments, please feel free to write them in the group chat, or you can send them to either myself or Dr. Gil Tivon through Facebook Messenger. If you want to remain anonymous, that is fine too. And we will do our best to address all your questions and comments. Just quick announcements. On the Metaphysical Sciences TV YouTube channel, you could find all of the previous episodes from this podclass plus more. We have currently 3 podclasses. We have ones on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Be sure to look out for any updates on Facebook, especially the Facebook group Mental Health, Spirituality, Mysticism, and Metaphysics. So be sure to become a member of the group if you haven't joined yet, so this way you can follow us. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button and subscribe, and remember to hit the bell so you get notifications for when new videos are coming out and when new podclasses will be happening. Now we will turn it over to the man of the hour. Let's give him the power. Everybody say hello to Dr. Gil Tivon, everybody.
Hello to you all and good evening to you all, and thank you so much for hosting us, our dear friend Mike. So we did start 2 weeks ago, and this is an alternative week. We started 2 weeks ago to speak about healing our trauma, and then we're going today to expand and widen our horizon, dealing with healing. This is the highlight, but since this is also going to be especially broadcast on Metaphysical Science TV, so we want to speak also through the prism, or through the lens of metaphysics. So whoever didn't hear it last time, it's out there in YouTube, it's out there in Facebook, so you're more than welcome to listen to the first episode. Each episode is going to stand on its own, taking into consideration that other people haven't heard, and it's okay. And each one will be part of a series of you to grow together with me and with Mike together through these kind of things. This episode today is extremely important for both you and myself, as we both are learning together and growing and developing together. So let us start, without further ado, and let's speak about the greatest secret on earth. Let's start there. And again, we're talking about healing, we're talking about therapy, we're talking about trauma, we're talking about grief, we're talking about addictions, but we need to have some kind of key or introduction to all of this. So let's start there, which is very, very interesting. What is the cause and cure of men's or women's problems on earth? What is the cause and cure for all of our problems? I'm going to say it slowly and give you some examples as we go along. That is the foremost question ever formed in the human mind. What is the cause and what is the cure for all of our problems on earth? Problems and not only challenges. Discovering the cause and applying the cure is the purpose of this of this session today and of the following sessions to uncover and to discover that mankind can be likened to a large party of tourists searching for a new home site. They board a train that can take them from a dry and dreary desert to a grand and lofty mountaintop. The travel guide assures them that the higher they go, the greater their capacity to see and enjoy the countryside will be. So again, right now, we are right there in the dreary, dry desert. And the higher you go, the better your view, the better the enjoyment, and the better you'll be able to see what you're going through and enjoy life. So there are station stops all along the upward way, and sometimes going upward is working against resistance, sometimes it's tough, sometimes it's challenging. So a tourist might get off at any part, at any positive, like at any station, and he's perfectly free to cut himself short or to continue all the way to the top. Now you're starting to get where I'm walking. This is not a simple story. It sounds simple, but it's an analogy for each and every one's lives here. Some get off at the first stop. Why not? They find themselves in desolate country. They settle down in secret despair. Now, if you decide to be impulsive in life, if you decide to get off at the very first station, if you decide to numb your pain or run away from it, then you might find yourself stuck in the rut for the rest of your life, or at least for now. There's a price to go down that rabbit hole, to live impulsively or to run away from your fears and your own demons very quickly in the game. Others go on for another station or two, then they take off the leave of the train and their location is somewhat better, but still they settle down with a vague uneasiness. A few others, the enduring ones, keep going. Somewhere along the early part of the journey, they made a fascinating discovery. Though the trip certainly has its challenges, the farther they go, the easier it becomes. So you think that going further will make it tougher, more challenging, and impossible to go through. But that's not true. The further you go, the easier does it become. Patience and persistence are the tools. Patience and persistence are the tools that will make sure that will be rewarded. So they eagerly press on persistently and patiently. As they do so, they reach the peaks of happy and unworried living. With enormous relief, they find that the mountaintop was not just something announced in the travel guide. It is real. It is a real life's experience. It is there. It is theirs. So that's the first part, the greatest. Let's summarize the first part because I don't want to rush anywhere. I don't want to be impulsive. I want us to integrate and to capitalize and make an ownership on what we're studying here together. Because this is not a theological or academic exercise. This is practical life, hands-on experience. We said that we all try to find the cause and the cure for all our problems. And it's always been worrying our mind from the day one that we are here and that the purpose of what we're here for. And then we give an analogy about all kind of tourists boarding a train and going to different destinations, and the more impulsive, inconsistent, and not persistent we are, the worse off will be our conditions for many, many years. But the more persistent and patient and willing we are, then we will see that as time goes by, life becomes easier. And when we do decide to get off at the very top of the mountain, then life is so beautiful and great and enjoyable, as some people on this earth will share with you that it is. The more you allow yourself to be persistent, consistent, with very strong will. So the next little headline is the needless desperation of man. When I say man, I mean man, or woman, or a person. The needless desperation of a person. There lived a man, his name was very famous, his name was Edward Arlington Robinson. And he sums up the desperate predicament of a person in his classical poem, Richard Cory. The name of the poem is Richard Cory. Everyone in town admired Richard Cory's princely manners. They envied his apparently exalted station in life. He seemed the very ideal of a very successful individual. But it was all a stage performance. How many people do you know like this? Maybe you're one of them. That we're putting on a pretense, that we know the people that we're jealous of, and we mention the names day and night. Elon Musk, they just lost $200 billion in 2 months. Jeff Bezos that lost over $90 billion in a few months. Bill Gates that lost so much as well, and others as well as Zuckerberg from Facebook. Altogether, they lost over $200 billion, $666 billion in 2 months. 3 or 4 people on this earth that we all envy and speak about and we hold to be the biggest leaders, etc. on this earth. Not that they are not great, not that they didn't do well, but we think that their performance is incredible while we don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe just a stage performance. We don't know what physically or mentally or spiritually or emotionally these individuals are going from. They go to sleep like us, they snore like us, they eat, they go to the restroom like us, they have emotions, they have challenges like other human beings. But when they fall, it's a big crash. It's a very big crash, and the whole world knows. So it was all a stage performance. Nobody knew it better than Richard Cory. In his despair, he finally fled the stage in the only way he knew, which is self-destruction. Generally, happy people are much rarer than one supposes. You feel this is Dimash, this great singer that we found in Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, right? And so many people are there, they're so successful. Richard Gere, others. What's his name? The actor Bruce Willis, who's currently very, very sick with dementia. So we envy them for many years. We envy the money, we envy the success, we envy the highlights or the significance they get from the entire world, what they say, what they wear, what they think, right? But the real happy people in this world are very, very rare, more than you suppose. People wear a variety of masks, smiling masks, wise-appearing masks, excuse me, excited masks, masks of worldly success, how much money they have in the banks, how beautiful is the relationship, all in a frantic attempt to convince themselves and others that the act is real, to convince not only others but even themselves that the act, the pretense they put on is very real. You know, if you tell yourself 1,000,000 times that you are rich, you might actually believe yourself. You believe that you believe in any other kind of way. But sooner or later, the play must come to an end, leaving the actor alone and afraid on his own little stage. So what does every person want? We only sense what we want, what he wants or she wants. He wants to be free. We all want to be free. What do we want to be free of? And again, the headline tonight is healing. The headline is therapy. The headline is to be free of all the problems that we carry and it weighs us down. So what do we want to be free of? From what? From the heartache and suffering, from our own compulsive desires, from our fear of what other people can do to us or say about us or think about us, from secret shames, from guilt we carry over from the past folly that we've been the mischief that we ourselves engaged in. I think the picture is starting to clear up. We want self-liberty, but we don't know what it is or where to find it. Where do we find self-liberty? When I go on pension, when I go on retirement in a million years' time, then I'll be free of all the chains that chain me down. But still, we anxiously seek, and almost always in the wrong places, in despair of finding the right needle in the haystack. I need to be free today, but I can't. I have to go to sleep on time, I have to wake up on time, I've got so much on my head, so much to do, so many bills, the relationship, the house, the kids, the education, the health, the spirituality. How can I divide and juggle myself in so many different places? I'm just one person. And it weighs me down. The IRS, the banks, everything else, the mortgage, the gas account, the solar account. So we don't even see that we are searching in the wrong haystack. So first of all, we are searching. We're all searching for freedom. But we're looking for a needle in the haystack. When we finish the haystack, or we're desperate when we say that we didn't find, we're going to find usually that we are in the wrong haystack. What am I referring to? We hopefully comfort ourselves, well, tomorrow is going to be different. But it won't. As our dear friend, the late Einstein, I never met him, but if he was alive, I would be his friend. I'll make sure he'll be his friend, because he was also a philosopher, a beautiful philosopher, and a mystic, a metaphysical kind of person and scientist. Number one, said, I cannot solve the problems of today with the same mindset, feelings, and habits of yesterday. Because if I bring the same thoughts, the same feelings, and the same pattern of behavior of yesterday, how can I get a change? I can get a different kind of result. So I have to grow through change. And the major word for human growth is change. A positive change, which is so much closer to who we are. So, and we know it. We know that we will be looking back and finding ourselves in the same old despair. The only change will be a few external and exterior kind of surroundings, paste on the outside. But it's still the same old haunted house of ourselves, because we haven't done a real change. We haven't really checked everything to the depth of it. There's a famous prisoners in the cave allegory of Socrates. We all have the great philosopher of the late, of Greece of age, Socrates, and it was told by Plato, his friend. He explained that man's condition. A number of men are chained in a very dark cave. The fire blazes around them, producing fearful shadows. Again, you're in a cave in the middle of the night. It's very dark. It's 2,000 years back, and the terrible shadows on the walls of the cave, and all are very, very frightened. Falsely assuming that the shadows are real, they cringe in terror and hostility into the corner, the cold corner of the cave. But one prisoner gets tired of all this game, which they think it's all real. So he takes up the courage. He decides to risk it all in an attempt to escape this terrible, dark, cold cave from all these fearful shadows that are threatening his life. Fighting his own way through the darkness, he emerges into the sunlight of the real world. He finds himself to be a free man. And what happens if he goes back to tell others about his wonderful discovery? Some of us over here are in a position of healing others, spiritual mentors, people that have this experience in life. And once we've seen the light, once we came out of our own cave, we want to come back and enlighten others and teach others and show them the way through this labyrinth of life. But what will it tell us when we share with them this wonderful discovery that they're fearful of nothing and of shadows that are not real and illusionary? What if we explain to them that the agonies are a result of their own illusions, that this entire new world exists on the outside, which is illuminated, beautiful, full of light and happiness and joy. Will they welcome our message? And the answer is shocking. They will not. What? And give up the smug assumptions that they already know what is real? Somebody is going to give in to their beliefs and say to you, I lived my entire life for decades in falsehood, in one big lie, in pretense. No way. You must go to an asylum. You are not real. You're telling me a lie. And disturb the ego-centered ways. And again, nobody's being cynical over here. I'm being very serious, and that includes me. And somebody will come and show me the truth, which will shatter everything I believe in, and say, Gil, you've lived a false life till today. If some big spiritual mentor comes, what will I do about that? Maybe he's living in falsehood, in pretense. Maybe that's what I'll tell him. No, they will scorn and resent us, call us a deluded fool, and remain in their own secret despair. So what? Now, this was the introduction. Now we start our lecture session for today. What solution does the mystical path offer? Again, this is Metaphysical Science TV channel, and we're going to allude to a mystical path which we're going to take in order to give a very illuminated, beautiful, truthful, sincere, honest path. Are you prepared to join me? Well, let's start the path. There is a way out. First of all, you must know there is a way out of this delusion, of this imagination, of the fearful desperation we're living in this world, of this terrible marathon that we run at the pace of a sprint. Day and night, that when we come exhausted to our bed at night, we're breathless. And we go to our ventilator, we just don't have air anymore, and we're stressed out, and we're anxious, and we're fearful, and we despair. We are frightened wanderers in this world. That is an observable kind of fact. But there is a second fact which is rarely glimpsed on. There is a way out. It consists of finding our true identity. So first step we make forward, and this is why it's essential these lectures are very, very important. Not only for you, but also for me and anyone that wants to grow together. And this is for free, because this is out of an unconditional love, because it's so important for everyone. This is a fundamental kind of understanding that will help you grow in your life. And please be my ambassadors and agents to spread it to anyone that you know and bring them here as well. So the first path out is to find your true identity. That is the only way any human being, and this is by great spiritual mentors and mystics that walk this earth much before us have told us, has ever shed the ache of separation, isolation, loneliness. First, you must find your true identity. What does it mean? It means, by the way, that there is not one way for all. It's not one fit for all. It's customized. Your truth, my truth, his truth, her truth can be very different. We don't share the same belief, the same customs, the same tradition, the same perspective, the same way of looking at life, the same experience, and that's okay. But God, in His infinite mercy and infinite consciousness, have paved the way that when you touch that core value, starting at yourself, being truthful to your own identity, from there you will make a way and headway to find the true path to your own freedom, wherever you're holding your station in life right now, which is amazing. So I can only show you the direction, but you will have to find your own way with it, because it's customized, it's individualized onto you, which is amazing. It's mind-boggling. Let me share with you a short anecdote about this to make sure we understand each other and we line up. So, a prince was kidnapped at birth from his father's palace. Who is his father? the king obviously, was raised in poverty in a wretched village, and he rebelled against the poverty of his life. He constructed careful plans for becoming king of the land because it's in his blood, his royalty. Through a series of schemes and battles, he won the throne, but he was very anxious and very hostile. Why? Because all of his upbringing wasn't in the palace being fed by a gold teaspoon, but rather was in poverty and hostility. He was homeless for many years. So he had an incredible conflict inside himself between his royal blood, which he knows barely anything about, and about his very experience of life, which was always hostile. So having taken the kingdom by force, because that's his right, that's his birthright, he lived in the dread of other ambitious men. It was day-to-day misery, battle, and conflict. Then he learned his true identity. What is true identity, my friends? That he's a king by birthright. He sees the folly of trying to retain by force what is already his own inheritance, because it is own blood. I don't have to try and control it. I don't have to try and pretend and defend my own crown. It's my birthright. It's who I am. Now, with this kingly consciousness, there's no fear, there's no threat, only quiet and dominion. So, why am I telling you this story? I mean, that's somebody that's got royal blood inside him, but you and I don't have. Maybe you do, but I don't. I'm just a simple guy. No, not so casual, but simple. So, seemingly. Because that's not true. Because each one of us is a prince. You got one king who's infinite, who made us and in his own image to rise and shine in our own unique, specific way. Each one of us is extremely talented, smart, ambitious, capable of achieving the best for himself. And if you don't do your due diligence on this earth, we all suffer, because the God does not start his day tomorrow morning without you. He doesn't feel or doesn't think that his kingdom is going to last without you. So you're very valuable, important, dramatic, rare creation that we all need, and we will all gain and benefit from your being there. The fact is, I'll come off it, because you don't realize it. So this is your true identity. You're a prince. You are a princess. When are you going to wake up and realize this? When you sit down with yourself and say, hold on, pause. I want to observe what is my great. Yes, I'm working 9 to 5 in a job when I'm just an employee and I get $15 an hour or less or more. That's great. But what is your uniqueness when you are at work? Find time to devote to your uniqueness, to cultivate who you are 1-2 hours a day. Why not? When are you going? And there you touch happiness. There you touch not fearing anything. There you're looking forward instead of being so afraid of your own past and your own shadows. So on this story that I shared with you about this frightened wanderer observes Aldous Huxley, very famous. It is because we don't know who we are, because we are unaware of the kingdom in heaven that is within us. And especially I chose somebody who is known, he's not a priest, he's not a rabbi, he's not a Hindu, he's not Ida Lama. He's famous as a spiritual person, but not as a priest of any kind of religion or cult or sect. We are unaware of the kingdom of heaven within us. Again, this is not a religious session. This is a spiritual, metaphysical session. So we can all relate. We all speak the same language. We all have this beautiful common denominator. Nobody is excluded. I mean, all of us. We all have this kingdom of heaven within us that we are unaware of, that we behave in a generally silly and often insane and sometimes criminal ways. I'm reading from Aldous Huxley's words, this is not mine, that are so characteristically human. We are saved, we are liberated and enlightened by perceiving the hitherto unperceived good that is already within us. Where's the treasure? The treasure is within you. By returning to our eternal ground and remaining where, without knowing it, we have always been. Let me say it in different words. This is a real story that I'm sharing with you now. It will take 1 minute, but it will stay with you a lifetime. A little bit more than a minute, but short. This is a real story that happened somewhere in Russia a few good decades back, where a person called Jacob dreamed that under the bridge of the king's palace, there's an incredible treasure. So he went to the other town and he paced up and down to see when the guards are not watching, to see what's under the bridge, dig in there because the dream was very vivid and prophetic, and to find the treasure. But obviously one of the guards noticed him very much, that his function is a good guard, and he approached him and says, "Excuse me, sir, what do you think you're doing here? You look very suspicious to me." So I humbly and naively said, "I'm so sorry, sir, officer, guard of the king. I had an incredible dream, and I saw that under the bridge there's an incredible treasure." So the guard started laughing it off and saying, "Hey, my friend, bro, I also had an incredible dream. I don't know your name," he said, "but last night," says this officer, guard of the king, had a dream that a guy called Jacob comes from the city of, let's say, Moscow, and under his oven, under his stove, in his kitchen, there's an incredible treasure. That's all he needed to hear. That's what he came from. The guard had a dream about him, that under his own stove, in his own kitchen, he had a treasure. The guy quickly rushed back home, dug under his stove, and lo and behold, he found an incredible treasure. The treasure is always under your nose. We're always looking, maybe the grass is green on the other side, maybe somebody got the answers, maybe if we'll be apprentice to somebody else, he will show us the light, we will work for him for $10 like the work at Starbucks, and maybe one day we'll come out of our own chains. And as long as we're employees, as long as we're living somebody else's dreams, that's okay, we're in the comfort zone. But we are missing our own journey. We are missing our own identity. We are missing our true journey because we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. I will be 5 more minutes. I'll take of your time, and then we'll have about a quarter of an hour for your own questions and Q&A. Okay? So don't worry, I didn't forget about you. So every time, every person is a king through conscious awareness, through mindfulness of your own true identity. We need not try to do anything. We only need to realize who we really are. We are kings and queens, princes and prince and princesses by our birthright. How can we start practicing this idea practically? And again, remember everything we did till now. We are frightened human beings. We live in illusion. We run away from our fears. We live in panic. We run a marathon and a sprint pace, and we are breathless at the end of every day. And we're already not young. In 20s, 30s, 40s, 90s, hospice, bye. So how can we get out of this rut? How would you feel if you had no fear? Well, you feel liberated. Again, if you had no fear, if I'll unchain you from your fears right now, how will you feel? You will feel like a king, like a queen, right? Behave like one. How would you react to so-called misfortune if you saw its inability to bother you? Again, misfortune is only if you engage, only if you react to it. But if I don't react to it, if I don't play into the hands of this misfortune, this circumstance, or to this person's foul language or hurting me, how can they hurt me? Everything's got to do with my response to the situation. I believe that this is the right situation. By the way, in brackets, for those who understand the professional language, this is the basics of CBT, of cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm just saying it in very plain language, but behind this is lying CBT, which we're going to elaborate and meditate and contemplate and observe later on in our lectures. So react like that. So in other words, most of our fears, most of our worries, most of our anxiety, and etc., most of our panic in life is all about the way that we feel towards something, even though it might not be real. So we believe that we believe. How would you think towards yourself if you knew that you were really all right, that there's nothing to fear, that it's all just an illusion? I remember as a child, I used to watch Chinese movies, which I enjoyed, Bruce Lee and that kind of thing. And in one of these movies, they showed kids, young kids, that are being trained by a real spiritual mentor that is, black belt, day 9. And he placed them into a little room where he told them it's a cave. Then underneath that cave, there's an incredible abyss, so deep. And each one had to cross across the beam where there's lots of smoke around. And he warned them that if you fall from the beam, you will fall to your death. Every child walked so cautiously, holding onto that beam for his life. One child out of his being so, and they were all frightened to death. From being so scared, he actually lost balance and he fell. When he fell, that falling was less than 1 foot. And that spiritual mentor started to laugh it off so hard because they were all living with the imagination he planted into their minds. This is this world. We're all living in an illusory fear of our own selves. And we're doing it to ourselves. We believe what we believe. These are kingly states of consciousness. By getting yourself out of it, by seeing the truth, starting with your own inner self, right, you live like a king. I want to finish it off. A few more words, and then I'll turn it over to you. Excuse me. It is a fascinating process, fascinating journey. A self-working individual will be sitting around home one day when the startling thought occurs, here I am, sitting around, doing nothing of interest, nothing to hope for, no one to talk with, and I am not depressed. Till now I was very depressed, but now I'm not anymore. So he knows what would have happened a year or two ago in a similar situation. He would have trembled at the nothingness, at the lack of outside stimulation, and we all run to social media, to movies, to Netflix, to Skrill, to endless kind of things, just not to be with ourselves. We're scared of being with ourselves. We with ourselves, we get depressed, we withdraw away from life. We go to drugs, people go to addictions of different sorts. I don't, but many people do. But he has changed. He's no longer at the mercy of his own moods. He sees through the bluffs of negative impressions. He's quietly there. And that's all there is to it. Now, I don't want to take much longer because I promised our dear friend Mike that hosts us on this Metaphysical Science TV to allow time for your Q&A. And I think it's quite intensive what we've shared till now. It's more than enough. So thank you so much. And I'm turning over to you that we will have a few good minutes for your own Q&A or discussion or complaints or comments you'd like to share with me. Please go ahead. Excuse me.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would just like to thank you very much, Dr. Tivon, for that very enlightening lecture. I know it definitely made a few things click in my head. I'm just going to check the chats right now see what people are saying. Right now, it looks like there's nobody in here. I just received a message from somebody. Okay, so we had a few people who were trying to get into last week's room, I believe. We did have a couple people with us. Unfortunately, they are no longer with us. But I guess we did have a couple questions from last week about the subject of healing from trauma. And today we went over a little bit of, you were discussing the metaphysical approach to it. So one of the questions we had before this even started was, what are some of the techniques that are allowed to be taught? Because the way this individual understood it was there are only certain levels of knowledge that people may have access to at certain points in their development. So I guess what the question was trying to get at was, what are some ways that we could practically use these metaphysical principles and techniques to our lives to heal?
So this is the question, correct, Mike? The question is, what, if you can just say the bottom line of your question, that the people, it was quite lengthy, so just summarize for people to understand your question.
Okay, so just to simplify the question,
exactly.
What are some practical ways that are, I guess, that we can use that won't have a negative effect, in case it backfires? What are some metaphysical techniques that we can use to help us along this journey of healing?
Very good. So, first and foremost, as we discussed today, is to take time off for yourself in your life every day on a consistent basis where you meditate. First, you do a pause. Pause means time out. Meditate, observe, contemplate. These are not synonym words. These are three different stages in your life. First, pause. Then observe. In that observation, try to peel off layers of yourself, not physically, but rather spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And find out, what are your talents? What is your strength? What is your uniqueness? What makes you really tick? Ask yourself a simple question. For example, what am I passionate about in my everyday? It can be more physical or something like business. It can be spiritual. And then ask yourself, especially not who, but rather how. No, rather ask yourself, what am I doing this for? And why? Why am I going every day to work? Why am I in a nice relationship? Why do I go to synagogue, to church, to ashram, to wherever I go? What I want to get out of it? Why? And what is the purpose of all this? These are very, very simplified steps of metaphysics where you do start to peel off the layers and say, now I'm taking a pause, number one. Two, I'm observing the past till now, at present, and looking forward towards the future. Then you start to contemplate. After observation, which means I don't engage, just observe. I start to go deeper, start to criticize in a positive way myself, my life, and say, why am I doing this? The same question in a deeper way. Why did I do it? Why am I starting my day at 6 a.m., finishing at 10 p.m., and all I do is run around myself in a marathon and just trying to make ends meet and being in survival mode? Why am I living in the comfort zone? Why am I living in the fear zone? Why can't I extend myself further than this? When am I going to have time for me to grow from a relationship which is valuable to me, with my relationship with God, with my spiritual inner self? Ask yourself these questions not in order to stay with the questions. This is not a theological exercise. This is a practical metaphysics where you come up with answers hands-on and you say, well, therefore I'm going to change. And the major word here is change. I have researched, and I will share with you, that only salmons, the fish, when they want to mate, when they want to bring the next generation, they swim upstream of the river in order to find a quiet spot where the eggs that they lay won't be eaten by other kind of predators. It's very difficult for us to work upstream, but upstream is the source, the spiritual source where we come from. And I have a beautiful statement of one of the professors at Ohio University, which says, only that fish go with the flow. If you want to be alive, go against the flow. Go against the just flow with life, be passive observer of life. No, take charge of your life. Be proactive. Be a leader in your own life. At least there. What you do otherwise, carry on doing the same thing for now. But in order to step into the light, into the illumination, into the spiritual path, you need to make a few incredible observations. And the first and the key, which is very joyful, if you cannot do it yourself, definitely approach me privately through my email, which I'm going to write into the chat, right? Which is, maybe we'll devote at least one, if not 1,000 lectures to this, and that is, how do you find who you really are? How do you resonate? How do you connect with your real inner self? So here it is. Gil Tivon, first name, last name @gmail.com, and you can directly book a session with me, whatever it is. And I just spent with somebody tonight also the time, and people spend more than the time. People spend workshops to understand what they are for, what is the real calling. What is the real calling that you're here for? And this is one of the major steps you can do in order to reach this illumination, the first steps of metaphysics, of the real mystic path. And believe me, all those people struggled. All those great spiritual mentors, they weren't fed with a golden teaspoon. They had a hard, sometimes very challenging life, starting with poverty, starting with being orphaned, starting with all kinds of things that they had on the plate, that only through this they grow. If you compare yourself to a friend that grew with a golden teaspoon in their mouth and had very rich parents and no challenges, nothing wrong with rich parents, but no challenges, and everything being fed to them, and you look at your growth, well, your light is ahead of them because you work upflow against resistance. Thank you. Next question, Mike. Excuse me.
Okay. So right now, it seems people are having trouble getting back in, because I think of the time difference. What happened was the Facebook event ended, so the virtual classroom closed at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right now it's almost 11:30 p.m. because there was a bit of a time difference, 3-hour difference between Arizona time, where Dr. Tivon is, and where I am in Eastern Standard Time. So we apologize, very much to anyone who's watching this in the replay and who was trying to get back in and couldn't. We will get this fixed by next week. It's just a bit of a time difference. However, I did put together just a quick summarization of what we learned today, and I just want to bring this up very quickly. Okay, so to summarize, And Dr. Tivon, you could help with some of these. Some of these were questions people had, and I just wrote just a quick overview. And this is from last week's class and 2 weeks ago as well. Identifying the root causes of each of your life's problems or challenges, overcoming the needless desperation of man or woman, acting the way we want to be, self-limiting, putting limitations and boundaries on yourself, growth through change, coming closer to who we are by starting to make these small changes in the right direction. You mentioned a quote from
Beautiful, very
Einstein,
good.
which I'm not sure if I got it directly, but it's
So far, so very good. Yes.
You cannot create different results by using the same mindset you use to create your current results. So you have to change your mind before you can begin to change your environment. You have to change what is within before you can affect what is without. And then, of course, some people were asking questions. What solutions do mysticism or metaphysics offer? We covered some of that. There are a lot of different techniques which we can do, which Dr. Tivon just went over briefly. Also, on the Wednesday podclasses, mental health, spirituality, metaphysics talk with Mike Ray, yours truly, we will be going over in depth mental transmutation and different forms of applied mysticism and practical metaphysics, which is basically metaphysical healing, and which is what we are getting to, but we just have to start with the basic building blocks first, of course. And of course, on this path, you want to discover your true identity. And what does this mean? Is a good question. Somebody had earlier, and then unfortunately they had to leave. And you answered it in part, which is that not everyone will walk the same path. Each person has their own individual path to finding their true identity. And not everyone's personal truth will be the same. There are personal truths and collective or universal truths. This is just something I wanted to comment on very briefly. Something I think I covered last week on this podcast, which is that there are truths that are just universal. They're absolute truths. That there is a God and that we are alive. There are certain things that cannot be disputed. Completely objectively, they are true. And then we have personal truths, things that bring us closer to who we really are as an individual. And of course, when you finally and truly find and know yourself, excuse me, you will have less fear to live, as Dr. Tivon said, to live like a king and not be as affected by negativity and the negative actions or behaviors of others. And then, of course, the question I posed before the interactive portion was, how do we begin? Somebody asked the question, what are some things we can start using to apply this knowledge of metaphysics to improve our lives? And it is called practical metaphysics and applied mysticism, which is essentially you are using the knowledge that you have accumulated, and you are applying these small steps, and that is the key, is just to make small changes to your daily routines, to your life, to trying to really change the way that you
You have to excuse me, Mike, since other people need to use this room. So you're welcome to carry on. We thank everyone for joining us, and we will see you soon. And the recording as well will be up and about soon, also on YouTube. Thank you so much, and have a great night. Thank you. I'm so sorry I have to leave.
Thank you, Dr. Tivon. Okay, sorry, Dr. Tivon had to leave in a hurry. He was sharing his office, and unfortunately we started a little bit late today, so we didn't get a chance to go over all the questions. However, I will just continue with the quick recap. Excuse me, my voice is a little hoarse right now. I'm coming down with a cold. The last question was, how do we begin practical metaphysics and applied mysticism? This is what we will be teaching on all of our podclasses on Metaphysical Sciences TV. And you will start to be able to connect the dots and and draw lines to conclusions that you never thought would have been related or even correspond or even relate to one another. A perfect example is how spirituality and mental health are related. Of course, this is something that we have already discussed in depth in the Inner Secrets Revealed podclasses, also the Mental Health, Spirituality, and Metaphysics Talk podclasses, and now the Mondays, this is the Mental Health, Mysticism, and Metaphysics Discussion with Mike Ray and Dr. Gil Tivon. Right now, I am putting up Dr. Tivon's personal contact information in case anybody would like to book a personal session with him, or if you have any questions for him, reach out to him. His email is giltivon@gmail.com. If you guys would all please be so kind as to subscribe and like this video on YouTube and hit the bell so you guys could get notifications for new videos and new podclasses will be coming up. Again, we apologize for the abrupt end to this class today, but there was a bit of a time difference and there was a little bit of a mix-up. But to continue with this just final thought, earlier Dr. Tivon had quoted another astrophysicist, and I believe it was an astrophysicist or some type of physicist. And one of the things that is very important and crucial to understand when it comes to metaphysics and trying to apply these principles to our lives is that we have to understand the power of the mind. Now, this quote from physicist Max Planck says, "As a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about atoms this much: there is no matter as such." Now, right now I'm showing a picture which we have shown before in episodes of Inner Secrets Revealed, talking about how the composition of the universe is mostly dark energy or dark matter. And the visible universe is just very limited of what we can see. And when it comes to the mind, when it comes to the process and journey of healing, when it comes to these applied metaphysical or mystical techniques to trying to heal yourself or to overcome some type of challenges, it's important to understand that the mind, as it says in the book, the Kabbalion, which I will let me grab it real quick, show you guys. This is the Kabbalion book on Hermetic philosophy. Hermetics is something that we have gone over before in previous podclasses and episodes of Inner Secrets Revealed. It is also a book that in my podclasses on Wednesdays, I will be going through and diving deep into it and really examining what is being said. And one of the, I just want to read a very quick quote from the Kabbalion. The principle of mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Now, this is something that you've probably heard before. If you are a member of the Mental Health, Spirituality, Mysticism, and Metaphysics Facebook group, you could find a post under the featured posts section called Understanding Metaphysics, where there is a lot of information and goes very in-depth into great detail about the principle of mentalism and how all is mind and the universe is mental. Now, if we think about that for a moment, and we really try to connect that with what we already know about the universe and the metaphysical and spiritual aspect of and nature of reality, then we really start to understand what is meant when we talk about mental transmutation, when we talk about applying these metaphysical techniques to our lives. It all begins in the mind, and it manifests first from within. As we talked about before, the quote from Albert Einstein is, you can not create different results with the same mindset that you created the present results with. You have to change your mind before you can change your reality. You have to change your internal reality before you can affect your external reality. And essentially, this is what we are trying to do through the use of applied mysticism and practical metaphysics. Again, I would like to thank Dr. Gil Tivon and everyone else who joined us. Thank you guys all for the great questions. Again, sorry for the time difference and for the mix-up, and I apologize to anybody who could not get back into the virtual classroom. I will see you all hopefully next time, same place next week. Even more to learn and discover. Thank you all very much again. I am Mike Ray, your host for Metaphysical Science TV, and this was the Mental Health, Mysticism, and Metaphysics Discussion with Mike Ray and Dr. Gil Tivon. Thank you very much.